Welcome to the cutting edge of the global awakening.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex.
Well, it looks like the North Tower of the World Trade Center has just completely collapsed.
The U.S. dollar's status as the preeminent reserve currency is under attack.
This is a mathematical fact. Tens of trillions of dollars are being extracted from the United States of America.
You really want the truth? Then just follow the money.
Welcome to Follow the Money Radio, a broadcast dedicated to your personal, spiritual, and financial liberty. And now, here's your voice of reason in the midst of global chaos, economist and best-selling author, Jerry Robinson.
Greetings, friends. Welcome to Follow the Money Weekly Radio on the web at ftmdaily.com. So glad that you're joining us this morning. What a week we have had, especially with the Federal Reserve announcing no QE. No QE at all. And you know what? I hate to say I told you so, and I'm not going to. But the fact is that we have been saying that there cannot be a Fed taper of QE3 anytime soon based upon the numbers. And so we were properly positioned ahead of this QE3 announcement and wrote it right up. The Fed cannot cut its QE3. Now, you know, I say this over and over on our program. We've talked about QE3, QE2, QE Unlimited. We talk about all these terms, and I noticed something in the news this week that 73% of Americans do not know what the Fed is doing with QE. In essence, they're printing money. And I should not be surprised by that. I should not be surprised that almost 3 out of 4 Americans have no clue what the Fed is doing or what QE3 was or is. But I got to admit, I was a little shocked. I'm shocked because they're playing with they're basically playing Russian roulette with our economic future. And it seems that many Americans they don't have their eye on the ball, you know, and we know this. I mean, I'm kind of preaching to the choir. Those of you who tune into this program every week, you've been hearing me talk about these things for a long time. You're acquainted with them. Many of you are intimately familiar with them because you've done your own due diligence and you've signed up as an FTM insider and you've read our newsletters and our commentaries. But it's really something, the fact that 3 out of 4 people don't even know what the Federal Reserve is up to right now. Even when it's plastered all over the news, people don't even know what it is. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's really bizarre, the place that we're in. It reminds me of a story. Well, before I tell you the story, I got to tell you what's on the lineup today. We got a great show for you. David Morris is going to be dropping by. He is the author of the Urban Survival Guide. We've had him on the program before. He's a good friend of the show, and he'll be here to talk about his book and some new information, I think, that's going to be real beneficial to you. So you'll want to hang around for that. I'll also be giving you my review of World War Z, Brad Pitt's new movie. Jennifer and I sat down to watch that movie last night. And I had no idea what it was going to be about. I had no idea what to expect. But I got to just tell you that I've got to tell you about this. If you haven't already seen it, you might want to skip that part because I am going to provide a spoiler because I just have to tell you what I saw. Really something. Also, we'll be joined by Tom Cloud here very momentarily. I have him in the bullpen warming up. He's almost ready to go. And then we have Jay Peroni as well as Jennifer will be here with our Trigger Trade Report. And if you can't tell, I've got a little bit of sinuses. It must be a change in the weather. I've just been dealing with this all week, so I apologize for the nasal tone that you're having to put up with this week. Prayerfully, it'll be better by next weekend. So regardless, our Income University just started, so everybody's been checking that out, and great feedback we're getting back from that right now. If you're not a part of our FTM Insider, I encourage you to do that. Go sign up and then get our weekly income ideas in your inbox. It's going to be a very fantastic university covering 22 different income streams, so be sure to check that out. Okay, before I bring Tom on, I was going to tell you another story. And this is something that came out yesterday. I was watching the news, and there was a story about and I don't remember all the details. I'm just going to give you the gist of it. there was a widow of a U.S. senator who is receiving amount of about $174,000 that was buried in this new spending bill that was passed by the House. And the question was, should this lady receive $175,000 from U.S. taxpayers in the form of a widow benefit because her husband served in the Senate? Well, come to find out, their net worth is somewhere north of $5 million. So do they really need another $175,000 from the U.S. taxpayers? And this was big hubbub and big news, and it was all over the place. And it's obviously being used as a political tool. And of course, if you look at the articles online, you see all of these different comments. People are all outraged. How dare they give away our money, $175,000. And when I saw this story, it just reminded me again of how it made me think of this story about the Fed, and only 3 out of 4 people know what it is. Because this is our problem. As the United States has now racked up $6 trillion fighting 2 wars, Afghanistan and Iraq, neither of which have any point whatsoever. It's just been a complete disaster. And now we're talking about new wars around the world. We have this NSA complex that's costing us, no doubt, hundreds of billions of dollars that they're building out in the mountains of Utah. I mean, there are some real serious things. They are taking our money and they're using it for all these NSA capabilities. And yet the media is so derelict that they point us at a $175,000 check that's being paid out to a senator's widow, trying to get us all riled up. This is how they do it. This is how the propaganda masters keep us in the dark, is they put out little headlines like this to keep us fighting about meaningless things. If the American people are going to get upset and outraged about money being spent, let's get upset about the trillions of dollars they're spending on wars that serve no purpose. Let's get upset about the NSA funding that they're using to, basically hijack our nation and turn the microphones on us and listen into our phone calls and watch our emails and look at our Facebook private messages. I mean, this is really, it just shows you how desperate the American Republic has become, that we are so easily distracted by the most meaningless, minuscule problems, and yet the big elephants in the room get totally ignored. So just interesting that all of this stuff is happening. Now, I'm not surprised at all about the Fed's announcement. Again, we called this. And in fact, I'm going to go on the record here again for the 3rd or 4th time and tell you, I do not expect a taper this year. Again, we don't believe it's going to happen. In fact, and this is pretty bold, I'll admit it, I may be wrong on this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway because I really believe that this is how it's going to turn out. I think we're going to see an increase in QE3. No, not any kind of taper. Instead, they're going to bump it up because what they're doing currently is not working. Maybe if they double it, maybe instead of $85 billion, what if they pumped in $150 billion? Maybe that'll help. Maybe that'll spruce up the economy. Maybe what's been wrong with this QE3 issue is that they're not putting enough into the system. So I know it's pretty audacious, but I'm going to say they're going to double it or they're going to increase it before they ever decrease it. Now, I could be wrong, and I admit that. But those are my thoughts on the whole Fed and tapering issue. But here with his own insights, I'm going to bring on our good friend Tom Cloud. He's going to give us insights on this QE3 issue as well as gold and silver. And then we'll be joined by Jay Peroni with his idea of the week. Jennifer will be here to talk about the trigger trade report. Wow, we had some really good trades this week. So she'll fill you in on those. And then we'll have David Morris on. Before that, I'll tell you about my World War Z review. Oh, what a slimy movie. All right, let's head over now to your gold and silver update.
Follow the Money Weekly presents your precious metals market update. Here's Tom Cloud.
Well, Jerry, it's been quite a week with the Fed's announcement to not taper, and we saw gold had its biggest one-day rise in 15 months, and we're just around the corner from the battle on the debt ceiling. We see Obama trying to twist the Republicans' arms to make a deal where they don't have to debate it in public and show his horrendous track record of managing money. we now find out today that another $2 trillion has been created in 2 years out of thin air to back our budget deficits. We're now taking in $2.5 trillion a year in taxes and spending $3.8 trillion in expenses, and the year closes out on September 30th, the fiscal year for 2013. The news just keeps flowing worse. The dollar has started sliding, and James Sinclair, highly respected, is actually saying once the dollar breaks 78, it's going to go down to 70, which is about another 10% drop, which would then go to well over $2,500. But all of a sudden, we now see the euro heading into the 140s against the dollar, when the press has been telling us how bad the euro was and how great the dollar was. It seems like the press could not have done anything properly, but I take my hat off to Jerry and others like Egan Van Gruens and over in Switzerland for calling this. Jerry actually called there would be no tapering, and while I wasn't sure, I thought it was a possibility, but I did think that Bernanke, to leave his legacy, would probably taper some, but not as much as people were expecting. But the bottom line is they can't taper without sending this economy over the ledge. So I think tapering is going to continue. Bank stocks have plummeted the last month, and Bank of America has been taken out of the Dow Industrial, and we can go on and on. Two other facts that I talked about a little earlier in the week was over the last 12 years since this gold market entered the bull market, we've seen the GDP for the whole world go from 20 to 30 trillion, and the debt for those seven countries, the major seven, G7, has gone from 65 to 140 trillion. So interpret that means world economies and governments have to create $7 to produce $1 of gross domestic product, which is the highest of all time. But we're on a ride now, and metals are going to move much higher, and I think you're going to see $30 silver this year in 2013. I know that sounds crazy when it's right down in the 23s, but I really do feel we're going to see silver get back to $30 before the end of the year, and gold back in the 1600s. And we've talked about that, and people say, how could that be? We're starting to see now how it can be. And going back in my thinking process, I was talking to Greg Hunter at USA Watchdog, and he has posted my Killing Fields video from early in the year when I predicted the quick rise in interest rates and what it would do to the gold market later in the year. And I've had several calls that have gone back and reviewed that. So it's a good place to go back and review that. If you're on there on USAWatchdog.com, look at Karen Stutz also she was head legal counsel for the World Bank. She has an incredible video on there that she just did this week, which each one of you should listen to. But where we are right now, palladium looks really good. It's jumped 7% here in 2 days. We're hearing that Russia's going to have to close the mines early due to weather. And, of course, with demand now, with all this money being printed, the car industry will probably keep up a moderate demand for palladium. So we really could see $800 palladium this year, several months after I thought it would happen, but still a great target. So I would be looking at palladium to buy and silver to buy and gold to buy. All three of them have a tremendous way to run now that all of them have cleared the hurdle, and we think their bottoms are all in on that. And certainly both from a technical and a fundamental standpoint, gold, silver, platinum, and palladium are all in an all-out buy signal. And once again, we expect them to move quite a bit higher by the end of the year than they are right now. So hopefully, if you haven't talked to me and have any questions about these products, You can reach me at 800-247-2812. That's 800-247-2812. Or if you don't get our email blast, you can go to ftmdaily.com and hit the Precious Metals button and sign up. We send out 2 or 3 blasts a week of all different things to keep our clients abreast of what's going on in the precious metals world, and those names are completely confidential. So hopefully this update will help you, and if any of you need me, just give me a holler. Till next week, this is Tom Cloud with this week's Precious Metals Market Update, signing out.
Hey friends, this is Jerry Robinson from Follow the Money Weekly. Recently, we have been receiving many emails from our listeners commenting on the great help they're getting from our precious metals expert, Tom Cloud. Gold and silver are excellent hedges against the growing threat of coming U.S. inflation. Who's your gold guy? Make it Tom Cloud. With over 30 years experience with precious metals, Tom will answer all of your questions. Don't buy your gold and silver through some call center and pay inflated prices. Call my good friend Tom Cloud and speak directly with him and get all of your questions answered. For a limited time, Tom is offering free shipping and insurance on every gold and silver purchase made by our listeners. Call 800-247-2812. And when you do, tell him that Jerry Robinson from Follow the Money Weekly sent you, and he'll throw in that free shipping and insurance on your entire order. Call your gold guy, Tom Cloud, right now for the very best deals on gold and silver coins. 800-247-2812. That is 800-247-2812. Hi friends, Jerry Robinson here. Many of you know that I have been running several successful online businesses for years. And one of the things that I like about doing business online is that it's cheap. In fact, anyone can get started simply by purchasing a domain name and a web hosting plan. But how exactly do you get started? Well, just go where I go, dirtcheapwebhosting.net. That's right, dirtcheapwebhosting.net. It does not matter what you're looking for because they have it all. Domain names as low as $1.99, web hosting plans as low as $3.99 per month, and you can even start your own online store for as little as $9.99 per month. And if you need help building your own website, just use their free design wizard and you can be up and running in no time with your very own beautifully designed website. Friends, it's time to get online. Start a blog, start an online business, start something. Log on now to dirtcheapwebhosting.net and get your own website set up right now for just a few dollars per month. dirtcheapwebhosting.net. Everything you need to get started online, only cheaper.
With this week's Trigger Trade Report, I'm Jennifer Robinson. We had a lot of activity this week in the trigger trading portfolio. We sold 4 positions this week, including our New Zealand ETF, ticker symbol ENZL, for a 7.8% profit. And WEN, which is the ticker symbol for Wendy's, which was up 8.8% overall. We currently have 4 stocks still in play, and that includes ticker symbol AVG, which is currently up 5.5%, and ticker symbol EGOV, which is our latest trade in play. 3 stocks have still not reached Jerry's trigger price as of this weekend. Trigger trading is a momentum-based day trading system that we offer all of our FTM insiders, in which they receive a daily trading idea and sometimes a bonus trading idea, complete with Jerry's trigger price, stop-loss price, commentary, and daily status updates. Learn more at ftmdaily.com/triggertrade.
Jay Peroni, certified financial planner, here with the idea of the week. This week we'll take a look at 3 stocks in my favorite sector. In July, during my mid-year stock review, I talked about my favorite sectors for the second half of 2013, and of those, one of my favorites was technology because it lagged the market the first 6 months of the year and was poised for a comeback. Right now, it's still one of my favorite sectors heading into the end of the year as we march closer toward 2014. As this sector emerges, there are 3 main themes to watch for: an increase in cloud computing, internet applications, and mobile computing. In this sector, I've identified 3 of my favorite stocks to play on some of these trends. Number 1, I love fiber optics. And Alliance Fiber Optics Products, ticker symbol AFOP, is my favorite play here. It just recently did a 2-for-1 stock split, so its stock price is lower. It designs, manufactures, and markets a broad range of high-performance fiber optic components and integrated modules. Its products are used by leading and emerging communications equipment manufacturers to deliver optical networking systems to the long-haul, enterprise, metropolitan, and last-mile access segments of the communication network. The stock is currently a part of our Tomorrow's Treasures portfolio. Again, that one is Alliance Fiber Optics Products, ticker symbol AFOP. I also love internet security software, and Qihoo 360 Technology, ticker symbol QIHU, is my pick in this area. Qihoo offers internet and mobile security products, and it's currently a part of our Contrarian Strategies portfolio. I also really like semiconductors right now. Xilinx, ticker symbol XLNX, is my top pick in this particular sector. It designs, develops, and markets complete programmable logic solutions, including advanced integrated circuits, software design tools, predefined system functions delivered as cores of logic and field engineering support. The stock also pays a 2% dividend, so you get a combination of growth and income. Xilinx is currently a part of our Dueling Duo portfolio. So there you have it, 3 companies in my favorite sectors. Again, those are Alliance Fiber Optics Products, ticker symbol AFOP, Qihoo 360 Technology, ticker symbol QIHU, and Xilinx, ticker symbol XLNX. Want more ideas like this every month? Consider becoming a Wall Street Renegade VIP and gain access to our 7 portfolio strategies. Every time we have a new idea, you get a trade alert via your email inbox. To find out more, go to wallstreetrenegade.com and select our products menu and find out more about our Renegade VIP services. This is Jay Peroni, Certified Financial Planner, signing off for the Idea of the Week. We'll see you again next week.
All right, well, Jay Peroni is a CFP Certified Financial Planner, a member of our Christian Financial Advisor Network, and he also manages our very own PACE investment portfolio. If you would like to have a 30-minute review of your investments with Jay, you can call him at 888-664-6963. That's 888-664-6963. And when you do, be sure to tell him you heard about him on Follow the Money Weekly Radio.
Welcome back, friends. FTM Weekly, FTMDaily.com on the web. Our thoughts and prayers going out right now to Hong Kong, people in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Philippines, as they deal with a ravaging storm that has been strengthening in the Pacific Ocean, heading right now, and according to some estimates, going to dump 3 times the annual rainfall of London on Taiwan over the next 3 days. That's just unbelievable what they're dealing with. The same thing down in Mexico, as thousands of tourists and, of course, inhabitants there in Mexico stranded with historic flooding down in Mexico. So all of these weather issues that we're seeing, these natural disasters, we're praying for those people this weekend. And it makes you think about how important it is to be prepared for anything. We talk about the need to have a go bag. In fact, our next guest I'm going to bring on here in a moment is David Morris. And in fact, it was his book, Urban Survival Guide, that really helped me understand the importance to create a go bag, along with some other friends that I had as well. And it just kind of, his book sealed it for me. And so we began creating our go bag. And, natural disasters can happen. Many people think, well, a terrorist attack could happen or a nuclear disaster or something like that. But natural disasters are much more apt to happen, much more common. And so that's one of the main reasons to have a go bag. So I'm sure there's many people over in Southeast Asia and, of course, in Mexico who really wish they had prepared for something like this. And our thoughts and prayers go out to them. And, speaking of being prepared for anything, Jennifer and I sat down last night to watch a movie that had just come out for rent. You know, we don't go out to the movies too often. We'll usually rent them once they come out with a Redbox or Netflix. Occasionally I'll spring the money and, you know, buy it on iTunes or Amazon. We just hook up our computer to our TV. We abandoned cable a long time ago because it's too expensive for us. We don't get any value out of it. And practically everything we want to see is online anyway with, you know, Hulu.com. If you've never been to Hulu.com, you should go there. Lots of free TV stuff. There's lots of channels out there. Plus we have FTMflix.com. That's our own video site where we find documentaries and news. We put it up on the web. Those are things we want to watch ourselves. It's kind of like a queue for us, and then you get to enjoy it as well. But we sat down, and I sprung the money. I paid $4 to Amazon last night and said, okay, let me see this World War Z. I did not know what I was getting myself into. I knew that it was some sort of apocalyptic movie, end of the world kind of scenario, and I got to admit, I tend to enjoy those zombie movies. I know, it's weird. I like that one show that came out, AMC really hit it out of the park with The Walking Dead. You know, I know it's kind of gory and silly, but, you know, it had a pretty good plot, and it was enjoyable to watch, and it just caught my attention, and I really, you know, tended to enjoy it. Well, I thought I would have the same experience with Brad Pitt's new movie, World War Z. Of course, I know that Brad Pitt and his wife, Angelina Jolie, are both globalists, big time. You know, Angelina Jolie has been very heavily influenced and is influencing the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and a lot of different other organizations. And, you know, these organizations hold themselves out as altruistic. They're trying to help humanity. But, you know, in my perspective, my understanding of history, I do not respect these global institutions because I believe that their end goal does not represent any of us the way we would think. They're not what they appear. That's what I should say. They're not what they appear. Okay, well, World War Z, I'll just break it down for you. By the way, if you have not seen the movie and you are planning on seeing the movie, you need to skip this part because I'm going to spoil it for you in about 90 seconds. So just skip it and then move on to the interview. But if you have already seen it or you're not planning on seeing it, I've just got to give you my quick take. First of all, the film opens up, and it's Brad Pitt. He works for the United Nations, or former, you know, United Nations employee. He's been all over the world in different war zones trying to deliver aid and help and protection. And apparently there's some sort of virus outbreak that turns people into zombies, okay? And it occurs in the middle of a city. And I tell you what, if you really want to think and see visually what happens to a city when total chaos, you know, comes, watch this movie. I think the movie itself, from a entertainment perspective, is fantastic. The entertainment in it, I thought, was very good. It was, you know, heart pounding, heart racing. You know, it was a thriller. I mean, it definitely kept you on the edge of your seat. Very good action movie. But it was the underlying ideas and the propaganda that was being pushed that I could not believe. It was just in your face. You see this in a lot of movies, but I was really surprised to see it to the level. I don't think I've ever seen quite a propaganda film as strong as this, and especially the ending. But in essence, Brad Pitt and his family are in the middle of Philadelphia or New York City, some major city, and all hell breaks loose, and they're stuck in traffic in the middle of downtown. So it's an absolute chaotic scene. They're able to break free, and long story short, there's this virus that has broken out. People are turning into zombies or run all over the place. If they bite you, then you get the disease, and so, you know, then you have to be killed, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, it turns out in the movie that Israel knew about this whole thing beforehand and began building a wall all the way around their city, making them look suspect or maybe even involved in the whole situation, which was, you know, kind of unnecessary. And then, of course, the wall doesn't work. The zombies begin scaling the wall, and then everybody dies in, you know, Israel, Jerusalem. And what I took away from that was, in essence, Israel, you're stupid for building a wall. I mean, that was a very low blow, I thought, because Israel has built a fence between it and the Palestinians in order to protect themselves from the terrorists. And this was basically a low blow saying, you can build a wall, Israel, but it ain't going to help you. was pretty low blow. Very, very interesting little commentary that they were doing from Hollywood. Now, the other thing that I noticed at the very end, this was jaw-dropping. I mean, you've just got to prepare yourself for the end of this movie. You won't believe what they do. First of all, Brad Pitt, toward the end of the movie, he finds a World Health Organization outpost, headquarters, not the headquarters, but one of the outposts. And he runs up, and of course the sun's rising over it, and so it's some sort of, shining, savior for mankind. He gets into this building, and there's scientists there, and they determine that if they inject themselves with deadly toxins and bad diseases, that it makes them not attractive to the zombies. And so therefore they can walk through, all the different zombies and not be attacked because they're diseased. Just like an animal will tend to move away from a diseased prey, so too they're just shooting themselves with these toxins and these diseases, and then they're able to, in essence, be camouflaged from the zombies. And so at the end of the movie, they show the World Health Organization issuing this quote-unquote vaccine, and they're parachuting it into all these different villages, and all these kids and all these women and all these people are just taking this and they're injecting themselves with it, and, voila, the World Health Organization and the UN saved the day with a vaccine that in essence has disease in it. And that's how you protect yourself from the zombies. I mean, it was just mind-blowing. And just to see this in full living color, you've just got to see it for yourself, because the propaganda level of this movie was outrageous. Totally globalist movie, totally globalist agenda, and shocking, jaw-dropping to me and Jennifer. We sat there afterwards, looked at each other and said, oh my goodness, what are they trying to sell? What are they trying to sell to us? In essence, they want everybody to, at one point down the road, be willing to inject themselves with a vaccine that has a deadly disease in it, so as to help us. That's how they're going to help us. And to see Hollywood pumping out a movie like this with such clear propaganda in it just blew my mind. Now, speaking of getting prepared for anything, our next guest is David Morris. We pre-recorded this earlier. Let's head over to that interview right now. So if you take a look around us today, you see a lot of breakdown in the family, breakdown in government, breakdown in the financial system. And overall, it seems as if Americans are beginning to realize that breakdown could actually threaten their own way of life. My next guest, David Morris, who is a friend of the show. He's been on FTM Weekly in the past. He's the author of the book, The Fastest Way to Prepare. He's also written several other books. His work has been featured on the Glenn Beck program, WorldNet Daily, and many others. David, great to have you on the program today.
Well, thank you very much, Jerry, for having me on.
Absolutely. So let's talk just a little bit about what's been happening since you were on our program last. It's probably been 2 years ago. You came on and you admonished people the importance, especially those living inside of a city, to take preparation, to create a go bag, 72-hour kit, all the things that you've outlined in your urban survival guide. And those are all very important things. And that's where we left off last time you were on. What have you been doing new since?
Well, one of the things that I did after releasing the Urban Survival Guide was people were going through it, and it was having a dramatic impact on their lives, but there were a significant number of people who would buy it 2 or 3 days before a hurricane was scheduled to hit, or similar things, or there'd be an announcement where there was a likely terrorist attack that was going to happen within the next few days. And the book and the course were kind of made to, they required more thinking than that. It was very hard to implement everything in a couple of days. And so I wrote another course called Fastest Way to Prepare. And it is exactly what it says. It is the fastest way to prepare for, in reality, it would be a 6 to 8 week disaster. And most of it you can have done within a few hours to a few days of getting the course or the book.
Now, you don't have to convince me, because I get it. I really believe that people need to be prepared who live in cities and those who don't. But talk to our audience for a moment, those out there who may be questioning the importance of preparing. Explain to them some of the potential dangers that they could face and why you believe that we may see breakdown in the urban areas.
Well, it's really, when I wrote Urban Survival Guide, the reason that I used the term urban was because up until that point, people really thought that if you were in a disaster situation in an urban area, you were out of luck. And so I wrote it to the worst possible scenario. In reality, any area that has a decent population, even a town of 5, 10, 20,000 people, really fits into the same criteria that in a disaster situation, people are going to be scrambling to get water, they're going to be scrambling to get food, they're going to be scrambling to get medical supplies, and scrambling to get fuel. And so in that sense, people really need to get things squared away in case an accident happens. And it could be something as mundane as a lightning storm knocking out transformers and electricity going out for a week and not being able to pump fuel or have electricity for your homes.
Okay, so you've been around the block quite a bit. I mean, you've been doing this for a while. You're not a Johnny-come-lately. Do you fear a nuclear attack in America in the near future?
I take a very interesting and somewhat different approach to nuclear attacks, and in my mind, it is a fairly small probability for any individual person. And the reason I say that is there's a decent chance that a dirty bomb attack will happen at some point in the near future. If it happens in New York City...
You said a dirty bomb. What do you mean by that?
Dirty bomb is basically radioactive material that is dispersed with a conventional explosive. So
easier to
plastic
make.
Explosives, a mortar shell, something like that, and it's designed to cause radiation poisoning.
So it's easier to make than a nuke, in essence.
Much easier. It doesn't require any idiot who has access to the materials can make a dirty bomb.
What?
An actual nuclear explosive takes quite a bit of physics and chemistry.
So you do expect something like that to happen in the near future?
I do expect it to happen, but here's the thing with a dirty bomb. You've got very immediate area where it happens, and there's nothing that they can do to prepare that will, because they'll just be dead instantly or within hours. Then you've got people that are several miles away, which would be the rest of the country. And they're not going to be affected at all directly by the nuclear event. They'll be affected by fallout from it, not nuclear fallout, but civil fallout, electrical fallout, financial fallout. And then you've got a very small pocket of people between the epicenter and the people who aren't affected at all who are affected by radiation poisoning. But if you look at this overall picture, it's not really worth focusing a ton of attention on being in that small band of people. You're much better off preparing for broad-based disasters. In other words, if you focus on the fundamentals, if you focus on water, if you focus on food, if you focus on shelter and fuel and medication and security, that's going to help you no matter what happens. No matter what kind of disaster happens, that will help you. It's much different than somebody who throws all their eggs into the basket of a nuclear attack, and then a nuclear attack doesn't happen and their preparations go to waste. So if you take a broad-based approach, no matter what happens or if nothing at all happens, you benefit from the preparations.
Yeah, some people would disagree. They would say, well, if I don't end up needing it, then I wasted all of that money. But explain why that's not true.
Well, it really depends on how you prepare. Let's just take food, for example. If you go out and buy MREs, meals ready to eat, the military meals made for troops that are deployed out into the field or on exercises.
Have you ever found any good ones? Have you ever found any good MREs that taste good?
I've found less bad ones. I wouldn't go so far as to say I found good ones.
None of them are yummy, right? None of them taste yummy.
It depends on how long it's been since you've eaten.
Right.
3, 4, 5 days.
They taste
without
great
food,
after 3 days.
They're pretty darn delicious.
That's right.
If you've only got, if that's all you've got, and you've got 3 or 4 of those for a week, then yeah, each one of them is just absolutely precious, and every crumb is a morsel. But no, if you had a choice, you're probably not going to eat MREs instead of a regular home-cooked meal. And so one of the things that I encourage people to do is buy foods that you're going to eat normally, and just buy extra of them.
You know, that's a classic example, friends, of the influence that David Morris has had on myself and Jennifer, and the fact that, you know, prior to preparing, you know, we had very little knowledge. We had read several books. We had a few friends, and we actually had one person who was very influential. When we read David's book, everything made sense. Everything became much more clear, I would say. And I'm not, I'm not saying this to give you a bigger head or anything. I'm just saying it because it really is true. Whenever you make a statement like, you know, eating what you like instead of just buying a bunch of expensive food from Sam's or from some website and not really liking it but spending a bunch of money to buy it, just because you think that's the way you're supposed to prepare. Okay, I want to go back for a minute because, David, I lived in a big city. You've lived in a big city. I've lived in a big city. I was in Houston the last time you were on our program. And while I was in Houston, I could just feel in my gut as I drove down the street, I have got to get out of this city. I had to get out of the city. It was just something in my gut was saying, you've got to get out to be away from the city. But a lot of our listeners are stuck in the city. So let's talk about the quickest way, some of the ways that they can prepare if they're living in the city right now. They're living in a small apartment, and they have no way of growing their own food or whatever the case might be. Give us some basic strategies that they can take.
For which aspect? For food?
Yeah, just for somebody who's living in an apartment, you know, living in downtown, very metro area. What are some of the things that they can do to begin preparing? I mean, just anything.
Well, that's a great question. And one approach that you can take is, besides buying the things that you already eat, is decoupling calories and nutrition. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of sources for calories that don't have very much nutrition in them. And then there's nutritious food, which is pretty darn hard to grow or get if you're in the middle of a city after a disaster. But one of the things that you can do is get nutrients by sprouting seeds. And basically sprouting is either misting or soaking seeds in water and letting them sit for 1 to 3 days, depending on the seed. And then it's absolutely awesome. The sun converts the seeds into having, from being basically undigestible, into having many, many nutrients that they wouldn't have normally. And you can get most of your vitamins that you need for the day and most of your nutrients from sprouting, and then use whatever you've got for the calorie portion of the calories that you need.
All right, so how long usually does it take for somebody to get prepared? You wrote this book, The Fastest Way to Prepare. Well, how quickly can someone prepare from zero to complete?
It all depends on your definition of preparedness. And my definition has evolved over the years. If you're looking at being prepared as being able to survive a 1-week disaster, then you can be prepared for that in an hour or two with a pretty darn quick trip to any big box store. If you're looking at being prepared for 3, 6, 9-week disasters, it's going to take a little bit more effort, but you can still do that within a few days, and that's what I walk people through in the Fastest Way to Prepare course. If you're looking at true preparedness or resilience or independence, depending on your definition, it's really not something that you can achieve on your own. It's going to take either a big family or a neighborhood of people who have different skill sets and who are all ready, able, and willing to step up when disaster strikes. And everyone will kind of need to be able to take care of the basics, but then you end up with some people who focus on providing food, some people who focus on purifying water, and some people who focus on medical, and et cetera, et cetera.
Now, I want to shift gears because I'm going to put a copy of this book up on our website. The title is Fastest Way to Prepare. We're going to have that up there. You also have another book called Tactical Firearms Training Secrets. As I was looking this over, I was thinking, and I have to bring this up because there have been so many issues in the news lately with police brutality. Now, I'm not talking about using guns on police. That's not what I'm talking about. But it rang a bell because it made me think how we're seeing such a rise in this. And this even really goes with your narrative of the idea that society is breaking down. And one of the symptoms of that is a militarized police force. Whenever the Boston bombing occurred, what were your thoughts as you saw the police marching through Boston? Did you have a patriotic feel, or were you a little freaked out?
That was fairly ominous. There was some definite muscle flexing that went beyond the bounds of what the Constitution allows, and there were no checks in place.
How much do you take into consideration the breakdown of government into the preparedness? In other words, when society breaks down, when the whole order comes crashing down, inevitably governments tend to operate in a particular way. Have you dealt in that particular area? Have you moved into that area as to what people can do to protect themselves from their own government?
It really depends on how you define government, whether you define it as the UN coming in and enforcing laws, or whether you consider it to be local government or federal. I mean, it's a broad question, but I'll give you something that I think everyone will be able to grab onto, and that is that people's morals become flexible when their stomachs are empty, and people's morals become more flexible when their children's stomachs are empty. And that goes for the average Joe, and it also goes for law enforcement. And you can have a group of officers who are incredibly patriotic and believe in their oath, who would go against it in order to be able to keep feeding their family. And so one of the things that I suggest that people do is, if they're able to, don't only put aside enough food for yourself, but identify some law enforcement families in your area and put aside enough food to take care of them as well, so that they can do what they know they should do, not what they have to do to feed their children. If you've got a room of officers getting a briefing at the beginning of the morning, and they're being told to do something that they just know is wrong, but the room full of officers knows that they have to do it in order to be able to get the money to feed their children, they don't have a whole lot of leverage.
And that's the way it's been all throughout history. That's the same exact story that happens. Yeah, exactly. I mean, whenever governments turn on the people, it's not these, terrible, goons. Instead, they're real people like you and I. But you're right. Because they're hungry, because the collapse is affecting them, they operate according to their own incentive. It's a scary thought, I think, as we look forward, especially when we see all the things that are happening around the world. And I think this builds the case as to your thesis of being prepared. You may never need it. Nothing may ever happen at all. But that's highly unlikely. I mean, even if it's just a weather emergency, something could occur where you would definitely need to have preparations made. But I think this book, Tactical Firearms Training Secret, I think that's a very important title. The reason that I'm wondering about the book, though, is that every time I go down to buy ammo to go practice with my gun, they're out. I've found a few places to go. I mean, any issues with ammo? Do you have anything to say on that? It's been really something.
Absolutely. It's that Tactical Fire Training Secrets and Dry Fire Training Cards are shooting has always been one of my passions. I've been a shooter for over 35 years. And ironically, one of the things that most people don't realize is that the secret, if you want to call it a secret, of most elite operators, either military, law enforcement, or competitive shooters, is staying without live ammunition. And Tactical Firearms Training Secrets goes through how to properly use airsoft as a training tool, how to use dry fire as properly, because most people do dry fire completely wrong. And
what do you mean by dry fire? What do you mean by dry fire? What's that? What does that mean?
Dry fire is
for the
manipulating a firearm and doing everything that you would do normally without ammunition. So everything up to the bang, but no bang.
I see.
And it is how all three military academies train cadets. It's how all four branches of the military train their every level of troops up to Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. And it is the absolute best way to lock in firearms training fundamentals. And it happens to not take ammunition, be incredibly inexpensive, and incredibly respectful of time.
Yeah,
and so
very
it's
good.
Almost perfect. In a society that's becoming more and more and more gun conscious, dry fire training and airsoft training and imagery are absolutely key, and it should be in everyone's toolbox.
Before I let you go, let's just talk about current events for a minute, because so many things are happening. We have the stuff that's happening in the Eurozone. Of course, they're having crisis. We have the Middle East crisis. We have Syria crisis. Of course, we have the Yemen drone strikes that are occurring right now. So much is happening. The NSA gate that's occurring, the CIA, Libya, Benghazi gate. I mean, there's so many things that are breaking open right now, and the chaos just seems to be swirling. What are some of your concerns right now as you look out with your experience? What are some of the stories? What are some of the concerns you have? And just want to know what your perspective is.
There's a couple of big things. One is just the huge and ever-increasing percentage of the country that is dependent on government subsidies and who are absolutely willing, if not cheerleading, more and more government spending of money that they don't have. And it is an absolute house of cards. I mean, it's something that you talk about all the time. It's completely unsustainable. We are at war right now with the BRICS, and we don't identify or accept the fact.
Why don't people get that? Why don't people understand that we're at war with Russia and China, and that Syria and Iran and Libya, all of these are just proxies? How do people not get that?
My thought process is it's all determined by the filter that people look at the world through. And if the filter that people are looking at the world through is being designed and created by the media, then people are going to see what the media want them to see. If you actually read what the Russians say, if you actually read Unrestricted Warfare, which was written by two Chinese PLA colonels, I think, they talk about George Soros being the greatest terrorist in the world back in 1998. They talk about using bin Laden as a tool to fight their war for them. They talk about using passenger airplanes as guided missiles. And it's really no surprise. It wasn't a surprise when they did it on September 1st or September 11th. And why people don't understand it is absolutely beyond me. Now, there is another component to that, and that is that the only reason that our economy keeps going the way that it does right now is because of psychology. And it's because that enough people think that everything is okay, that they're not panicking, and they're going out and spending money like normal. And to a certain extent, thank God that that's what's happening, because it's allowing hundreds of thousands, if not millions more people to get prepared. At some point, there'll be a tipping point where more people are aware of just how bad things are than the number of people who are ignorant to it, and then
that's when the prices of everything go up. Yeah, gold and silver prices are going to skyrocket during that time. Food's going to become scarce. It's just hard to imagine. You know, as we sit here and we think about this, we think, you know, all throughout history we've had these empires rise and empires fall, empires rise, empires fall. Even the last century we've seen that. And it's so hard to fully comprehend what is really happening whenever you're living inside of a declining empire. You don't really realize it whenever you're in it. It's declining. History will look back and realize that the United States dollar was collapsing and that the American experiment, because that's what it was failing. History will obviously show that. What do you think history will say about Edward Snowden? Do you think history will call him a traitor, or do you think history will call him a patriot?
Depends on who writes history.
Only the victors. You know, the victors will. You're right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And
there is no right answer to that. It's whoever wins and whoever takes things forward. And I think that's the lesson. That's the key, is that people, they don't realize that the victors tell the story. Every single time we see a story about Syria or Iran, I mean, all you see are these, you know, goons wearing, you know, towels over their head. And you don't see people, you know, walking in the middle of a marketplace and children playing on a playground. That's not what we're shown. So I think anyone who's able to comprehend that begins to realize that we have really slipped down a very slippery slope, building a huge case for your work, what you've done. You've been featured on Glenn Beck. Your playing cards, by the way, I have a copy of them, or I have the whole set in my go bag, and we took out our pop-up just recently and played cards with them and commented on them. Tell us about the playing cards before we go.
Well, the playing cards, like most of the stuff I've created, they were developed out of a need. The purpose of the playing cards is to have in your go bag or 72-hour kit or your glove box, and the glove box of loved ones who may not be awake to the threats that we're facing. And they have 52 tips, tricks, and techniques to help keep people alive in a post-disaster situation. And they cover the basics from food, water, fire, and shelter to improvised medicine and security and improvised weapons. And they've proven themselves again and again and again from people who have written back to me and told me, hey, you know what, I was in this situation and I couldn't think. I had no clarity. And I knew we had the cards and fumbled through them, found the card, and all of a sudden I remembered what I was supposed to do. And it's not the most brilliant idea in that it's incredibly simple, but the delivery mechanism it works, and it works very, very well.
Fantastic. Okay, so where can they get a copy of your books? And okay, so we have the fastest way to prepare, which I think fits anybody who lives in the city. For those who are interested in the guns, Tactical Firearms Training Secrets, and also the playing cards, which I have a copy of in my go bag, or a set of in my go bag. Where do they go? How can they get a hold of it?
So yeah, Jerry, you can have them go to ftmdaily.com/survival, and that will give them access to, in most cases, very special pricing on all of my products.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, well, ftmdaily.com/survival. My guest today, David Morris, an author and a philosopher of sorts, as he looks out on a world gone mad and tries to provide solutions for people like you and me. Thank you so much, David, for what you do, and we'll get you back on. Hopefully it won't be 2 years next time.
Thank you very much, Jerry.
Well, friends, we are completely out of time. Thank you so much for tuning in to Follow the Money Weekly Radio this week. It's always an honor and a privilege to have you here with us each and every weekend. As always, I leave you with this final word, this time spoken by John Mason. This is a one that'll make you think. Would the boy you were be proud of the man that you are? Just something to think about. Remember, friends, when you want the truth about the global economy, just follow the money. Have a safe and prosperous week, and I'll see you right back here next weekend. God bless.